So here I am on the walkway between the two sections of the Lubango Hotel. I can recommend this hotel. There are some probably nicer hotels in some ways at a distance, but the huge advantage of this hotel is it's right there in the center. You walk out, you get the feel of central Lubango immediately, and it's lovely. Um, so, yeah, traveling, especially traveling like this, um, makes you pay a lot of attention to detail. You have to pause and think about little things that you would hardly think about at home when you're in your routine existence. I keep on thinking about at least the title of Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. There's a certain beauty about being forced to focus on very tiny things, things that you might not even think about or take for granted usually. And that's what I wanted to talk about now. So, yeah, in terms of health, one of the things we're doing is taking malaria prophylactics. So far, I haven't seen any evidence of malaria. I haven't. I don't think we've seen a single mosquito, but that's the recommendation, that you should take malaria prophylactics if you come to Angola. One has to pay attention to one's back, especially if you have back problems like myself, because traveling overland means sitting a lot, and sometimes sitting overnight, and that's not good for your back. So you kind of have to recover and perhaps do a bit of yoga. Sticking to one's healthy diet can be a bit difficult when you're traveling and you can't find exactly what you want. We've been eating a bit less vegan than we would normally like to, but salads we've been eating. That's not been a problem. I don't think there seems to be any kind of contamination problem there. Salads seemed all okay. And then there's the little dance that happens if you are a gay couple and you book into a hotel, especially in more conservative places such as Angola. South Africa was like this 25 years ago, and Angola is kind of there now. Homosexuality was decriminalized only in 2019 in Angola. It's not a homophobic country. I mean, some African countries really are and are quite dangerous for gay visitors. But Angola is cool. However, you come to a hotel, you say, such as this one, we booked a double room, and they look at you and they look at the booking and they look back at you and they kind of just give you a twin room, no questions asked. And I don't know if it's a kind of it's an attack on my privacy or identity, or whether it's just the receptionist being kind, thinking, oh, we probably don't understand, we're lost in translation. Clearly these two men want to sleep on separate beds, and one could make a thing about it, but then sometimes one doesn't. One has to pick one's battles. Then, yeah, the footprint issues, apart from obviously reducing one's footprint by traveling on the bus, there are other issues. Air conditioning, yeah. South Africa is very fortunate in the sense that it's got quite a temperate climate, so we don't need to spend a lot of energy cooling ourselves or heating ourselves. It's like in the absolute sweet spot almost. Whereas places like Angola are hotter, so there's more of a need for air conditioning, and of course with climate change, that in need is going to increase. But one thinks through, like how much how much heat can I put up with, and am I really not going to be able to sleep if I don't have the air conditioning on the whole night? Or maybe let me put it on for an hour, cool the room down, and then switch it off, and then we'll be fine. So those are things one has to think about as well. The footprint of the food one eats rises if the food is imported, and I was afraid that I was going to find a lot of imported food in Angola. The brands one finds here are totally different to the ones one sees in South Africa, Namibia, even Botswana. It's kind of a different industrial realm. But it turns out that a lot of the manufactured foods are in fact manufactured here in Angola, which was a nice surprise. So, you can eat local. There's this, myth, or somewhat true myth, that that countries such as Angola, rich in natural resources, don't care about their manufacturing industries. Of course, manufacturing industries in places such as Angola are nervous about the opening of trade barriers because they're afraid of being swamped by, above all, South African products. We did see a kind of South African supermarket complex. All the shops were South African, and I'm sure they have South African made goods there. But elsewhere, it's Angolan goods. And of course, part of the reason why Angolan manufacturers would be nervous is because there's no carbon tax. So goods from South Africa come here, they may be cheaper than Angolan goods because you are not paying the price of the transportation, and it would be a substantial transportation to get things from South Africa to here. What else does one have to think about, worry about? Budgeting, how much cash does one need? One doesn't want to be left with too much local currency. One thing that's worth keeping in mind is that the ATMs here, whilst they work quite well, and in fact better than what I've experienced in Mozambique, the ATMs worked well with our South African cards, but the limitation is 60,000 kwanzas, which is about 1,100 rand or 56 euros. So you can't take out very much in one go, and sometimes you have to queue. So that's something one has to take into account in one's planning. One has to take into account whether one has enough data on one's phone, on one's local SIM card to do what one wants to do. You have to kind of limit your watching of videos so your data doesn't all go. Not what one would have at home, where it's just essentially limitless. Wi-Fi has not worked well in the hotels so far. We've had to depend on our Unitel data. Security. One has to think about, will one be scammed? You're a tourist. You don't know the ropes. You have to check out, who is desperate here? How are people moving around? I do feel that at least Lubango is safer than Pretoria or Johannesburg. There's poverty, of course, but not the kind of poverty of drug addicts that one sees, unfortunately, at home. In fact, the most striking poor people here are young boys who are shining shoes. So they all carry this shining equipment around, and lots of people are getting their shoes shone all the time. But it's part of a ritual where they're supporting these boys, giving them a bit of money. I was talking to one of these boys this morning. He said he dropped out of school after grade 6 because his family couldn't afford the school fees, but he had been up to grade 6, and I tested him on some mathematics, and his maths was not that bad. But I suppose, yeah, if you're dealing with money, your maths has to be good. I've been told that one of the reasons why most of Angola feels quite safe is because it is a bit of a police state. One sees the presence of police everywhere, on motorcycles. One sees buildings, police posts, booths. They are very, very present. So the story goes that Angolans are just very scared of breaking the law, because there are fairly immediate consequences, and some of those can be quite brutal. Yeah. So of course we're seeing a small slice, or particular slice of Lubango. I spoke to somebody today who said there are huge informal settlements on the outskirts of the city, but we've not seen any of that directly.